Welcome to Drive the Daf. Clear, structured explanation of the daily daf in 20 minutes. You can even follow in the car.
Sukkah Daf Lamed Hey begins with the beginning of the Gemara immediately following the Mishnah that introduced us to the topic of the esrog. Now the Mishnah had taught us a number of different psulim, things which disqualify the esrog, and a number of different conditions which you might have which are not possible. The Gemara is going to begin by first of all identifying the esrog. How do we know that the fruit which we consider the esrog is really what the Torah was referring to when it said pre-eitz hadar? The Gemara is going to bring three sources, three ways of interpreting the pasuk to refer to the esrog, with one kasha on one of them. Then the Gemara is going to go into the psulim. In the psulim, we'll specifically focus on, for the majority of the daf, will be focused on the psulim of the esrog, where the esrog is a kind of fruit which is not kosher or not edible or not something which you could use for halachic reasons. And the Gemara will identify two potential reasons and discuss which one is the correct one, and have a machokas about it. Then it'll work through the rest of the psulim one by one. So let's begin the daf. We start with a brisa which identifies what exactly is a pre-eitz hadar. So the brisa starts off by saying pre-eitz hadar. It calls it a pre-eitz. That means that it's a type of plant that a same taste exists in the fruit and in the actual tree, the wood part of the plant, and that is an esrog. So Gemara asks right away, how do you know that's an esrog? We've seen a different Mishnah and a different topic that said that applies to pepper as well. Now, pepper here doesn't mean the vegetable. Pepper means the spice, very small pepper corns that are ground today into the pepper spice. So the Gemara says we know that the taste of the fruit and the tree of the peppercorns are also the same. How do you know that? Because in Hilchos Arla we have a statement here of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir says the Torah, when it describes Arla, calls it eitz ma'achal. Now, eitz ma'achal is extra. I could have said in Tatum call eitz, and after eitz ma'achal, it's coming to teach you that the halacha of Arla applies even to pepper, because eitz ma'achal is a fruit, a plant that has the same flavor in its tree, in its plant, and in the fruit, and that refers to the pepper, because that has those two flavors. Now, in Hilchos Arla, I specifically needed the Torah to include to specifically include the pepper, because I would have thought that the pepper was a vegetable. Rashi explains it's a very small, low plant. I would have considered it a vegetable. Hilchos Arla do not apply to vegetables, so therefore I needed the special limud to teach me that it does apply to pepper. And Rabbi Meir also adds that this teaches me that Eretz Yisrael is not missing anything. Even peppercorns grow in Eretz Yisrael. But as far as we're concerned, we see from here that the pepper is also a plant that's fruit and tree. The fruit and plant taste the same. So how maybe we're supposed to be taking pepper as pre-eitz hadar and not esrog? Somewhere says, okay, so first of all, that can't be because they're too small. The Torah says you should take it. You should take it in a way that you can see what you're holding. And they're so small, you can fit 100 of them in your hand. It cannot possibly be what it's referring to. Then there's a couple of other explanations of the word hadar, pre-eitz hadar, and these are other ways of deriving the fact that the esrog is what the Torah refers to as pre-eitz hadar. First of all, the Gemara says, Rebbe says, you could read the word hadar as hadir. Hadir means the corral. It's referring to a corral. Just like a corral is filled with sheep that are many different sizes and types. There are big ones and small ones. There are healthy ones and there are bali mumin ones with blemishes. If you look at an esrog tree, it's also filled with big ones and small ones, and ones that are well formed and ones that have blemishes. So the Gemara right away asks the obvious question. Every fruit tree has that. You look at an apple tree, there's big apples and small apples. The Gemara says what he means to say is that there are fruit on the tree from this year and from last year and from 2 years ago. Because the esrog fruit keeps growing on the tree year after year until you pick it off. It'll continually get bigger. And in an apple tree or any other type of fruit tree, you only have this year's fruits. Other fruits have withered and fallen off already. Now the Gemara has another derivation, which also refers to the fact that the fruits of an esrog tree stay on the tree from year to year. The Gemara says, pre-eitz hadar, hadar, that which lives. Hadar, which lives. It's the fruit which lives on the tree from year to year. And the Gemara has a fourth derivation. The word hadar is read as idur, which is a Greek word meaning water. And esrog is a tree that grows next to and near lots of sources of water. Okay, now we're going to work through the rest of the psulim in the Mishnah. The Gemara first quickly deals with the avodah zarah, the asherah, and the nidachas that have to be burned. The Gemara says the reason that it's possible is because since it has to be burned, it's considered to be burned already, and therefore it's not a minimum size. Now the Gemara is going to go into the types of fruits which are forbidden to eat and also may have no value because of their halachic status. We'll be referring to arla, truma tahara, truma tameya, meiser sheni in Yerushalayim, and we'll get to demai later on. So there are two basic factors to consider over here. One is it permitted to eat this fruit, and the other is, do you actually own anything, or is there nothing that you could own here? And as we shall see, just because you have one does not mean you have the other. Some of these fruits are forbidden to eat. Arla is usher to eat. Truma tameya is usher for anybody to eat. On the other hand, meiser sheni you could eat. You could eat it in Yerushalayim. Truma tahara, a kohen could eat. So there you have the factor of it has to be something which is kosher for you to eat. How do you know that? Rashi explains, because the Torah says lakachtem lachem, you should take for you something which is usable for you for other things. It has to be something usable for you. Now, the other factor here is, does it have money? Does it have a monetary value? Something which is asr b'hana has no monetary value. Arla is asr b'hana. There's no monetary value to arla. Truma tameya you could use to burn. It has a value. Truma tahara certainly has a value. You could sell it to kohanim. Now, about meiser sheni in Yerushalayim, we have an interesting dispute. This is a machlokes between Rabbi Meir and the Rabbanan if it has value, if it's considered to be your money or not. According to Rabbi Meir, it's not called your money. It belongs to Kadosh Baruch Hu. It's called mammon gavaya. You're allowed to take it to Yerushalayim and eat it there. He's giving you permission to eat it in Yerushalayim, but it's not called your money. According to the Rabbanan, it is called your money. So now, the Gemara over here is analyzing, first of all, that it says that it is an esrog of arla is possible. Gemara wants to know why. Arla has both factors. It has no monetary value because it's asr b'hana, and it's also for you to eat. So the Gemara says the machlokes is between Rav Chia bar Oven and Rav Asi. The Gemara does not initially identify which is which is the key factor. So the Gemara says originally we thought that one holds of one factor, that is the only requirement. The other holds of the other factor. The Gemara says, well, not necessarily. That can't really follow through because if you look, Truma tameya is in the Mishnah, and Truma tameya is definitely usher to eat, and it is definitely your money. So you can't have a Madhyamar who says that it doesn't have to be permitted to eat; it just has to be your money, because then Truma tameya should be mutter. It should be a kosher esrog. So. Right, because it clearly, Truma Tameya clearly falls on one side. Truma Tameya is usher to eat, but it is considered your money. So if there was opinion out there that said that we don't care whether it is permitted for you to eat or not, we just care whether or not it's your money, so then Truma Tameya should be a kosher esrog. But it's not. The Mishnah says that it's a pasul esrog. So the Gemara says, therefore, it's as follows. Everybody agrees it has to be kosher to eat, and therefore arla is no good. Truma Tameya is no good. The machlokes is, if you have something which is kosher to eat, but it's not your money, is that a psul or not? And that is what Rav Chia bar Oven and Rav Asi argue about. Now, what's that case? The Gemara says the only thing that qualifies as that is meiser sheni in Yerushalayim according to Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir holds that meiser sheni is mammon gavaya, belongs to Hashem, doesn't belong to you. It's not your money. It's mutter for you to eat, but it's not your money. Therefore, according to the opinion that holds, which the Gemara will identify now, the Gemara says is Rav Asi. According to the opinion, Rav Asi, that holds that it's got to be not only kosher, it also has to be your money, meiser sheni in Yerushalayim would be possible according to Rabbi Meir. Now we cannot prove, we don't have a problem with that from our Mishnah, because our Mishnah says not to use meiser sheni in Yerushalayim, but if you do your yaitza, that would clearly be the Rabbanan according to Rav Asi. So according to Rav Chia bar Oven, it could be anybody, because there is no requirement that it has to be your money, and therefore even according to Rabbi Meir, that it's not your money because it's kosher, it still qualifies as being lachem and it's yours. However, according to Rav Asi, Rabbi Meir would disqualify because it's not your money and it has to be your money. Okay? The Gemara says that we know that Rav Asi is one who holds it because Rav Asi clearly says that meiser sheni in Yerushalayim falls into the machlokes between Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim as to whether you could use it or not, for the reason we just explained. Now the Gemara goes further, and the Gemara says that Rav Asi says the same halacha applies to matzah on Pesach and challah, the mitzvah of challah. There's a mitzvah to take challah from the dough that you make, and there's a mitzvah, of course, to eat matzah on Pesach. The Gemara says the same thing applies. It has to be your money, and Rav Asi says at least it has to be your money, and it therefore fall into the machlokes between Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim whether you could be yotze these two mitzvahs with Meiser Sheni. Rabbi Meir would say you can't because it's not your money, at least the way Rav Asi holds, and the Rabbanan would say you could, it's not a problem. It is your money because it's not considered Mammon Gevaya. So the Gemara asks, so the source of the halacha has to be your money is from the fact that the Torah calls it lachem. Esrog it says it has to be lakachtem lachem. And by challah it says you only have to take challah from a dough which is arisoy seichem, your dough. But matzah doesn't say matzaschem. So what does matzah have to do with this? So Gemara answers that matzah is connected to challah with a hekesh. They're both with a gzeir shava. They're both called lechem. Matzah is called lechem oini, and in the case of matzah it says and in the case of challah it says v'hoya b'chalchem milechem haaretz. So it connects the two that they both have this same halacha that it has to be yours, and therefore falls into the machlokes between Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim. Okay. Now the Gemara wants to say, let's bring a proof that Rav Asi is right, that this halacha is a machlokes between Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim, just like he said. And the Gemara quotes a brayso which is straight out. Do you have to take challah from Meiser Sheni? Machlokes Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim. The Gemara says, let's say that's a proof. It's straight out. It's exactly what he said. Of course it's a proof to him. Where's it done at all? In the case of challah, it's definitely a proof. My question is, does it also apply by matzah and by esrei? Can you learn from the fact that they have a price that explicitly says it by matzah and by esrei, that explicitly says it by challah, that the same machlokes exists by meiser and esrei? Or could I say not? Could I say that in the case of challah, the Torah says arisei seichem twice, to really emphasize that it has to be yours. But in the case of matzah and esrei, it doesn't say it twice, it only says it once, so perhaps it doesn't have to be yours. Okay, the Gemara now works through the rest of the psulim in the Mishnah, one by one, and it repeats a lot of the sugya that we've had so far. First of all, Truma Tameya. What's the reason why Truma Tameya is puzzle? The Gemara says, like we said, because it's usher for you to eat, and it has to be mutter for you to eat, according to both opinions, both Rav Asi and Rav Chibar Avin. It has to be permitted for you to eat. Now, Truma Tehira, the Mishnah had said the halacha is Truma Tahar, which is edible only to a kohen. The Mishnah had said that you shouldn't use it lechatchila, but if you did use it, or if it's the only thing you have, you are allowed to use it. The Gemara says, what's the reason you shouldn't use it lechatchila? The Gemara has a machlokes between Rabbi Ami this time and Rabbi Asi. Again, the Gemara doesn't say which is which. One holds that the problem is that when you use it, you're going to end up getting it wet because it was stored in water to keep it fresh. And if it gets wet, then it's makabel tumma, and your wife and your kids are going to use it, and they'll be matame. You're not allowed to be matame truma, therefore don't use it as an esrog. The other one says that the reason is because by handling it a lot, you're going to rub off the skin, you're going to cause it to turn colors, you're going to damage a truma fruit. You're not allowed to damage a truma fruit. The Gemara says, is there a case which is a practical difference between these two opinions? The Gemara says, yes. If when you made the esrog truma, you only made it truma except for the outer layer. If all the esrog was truma except for the peel. If you said that the peel is not a truma, so then we don't care what happens to the peel. If the only problem is that you're going to make it discolored and ruined, so it's just the peel. Peel is not truma, not a problem to ruin it. If the problem is you can be matame, you are going to be matame the entire esrog, even though you left the outer peel not truma. Okay, now, what's the reason why b'diavad if you use it, it is kosher? So the Gemara says this, again, depends on the other machlokes. According to the opinion that all you need to have is that it's a kosher for you to eat, it is kosher for you to eat. It's kosher for a kohen to eat. Even though a kohen is the only one who could eat it, a Yisrael is still allowed to use it because at least it's edible to a kohen. Or he could purchase it from a kohen. He could feed it to his own grandson who might be a kohen. It has relevant heter achila to Yisraelim. And according to the opinion that it also has to be yours, it's yours. Truma tahora counts as yours. That's not a monetary issue here. Okay, the next thing in the Mishnah was demai. Demai is produce which is bought from an amaretz which we suspect did not take off meiser properly. The halacha is that you're not allowed to eat it until you take meiser from it. And in our Mishnah, it had said that it's machlokes Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel says it's kosher, Beis Shammai says it's puzzle. Gemara wants to explain why. So the Gemara says that Beis Hillel says it's kosher because even though you're not allowed to eat it, you could make yourself permitted to eat it, and that's because Beis Hillel holds that a poor person is allowed to eat demai, and you're allowed to feed it to traveling soldiers that are stationed in your house, and and the king gives you responsibility to feed them. These are Jewish soldiers. They're allowed to eat demai. You're allowed to feed them demai. Now, therefore, a person could be mafkir all of his belongings, and he'll become poor, and therefore he'll be able to eat this demai. So it is considered to be something which is relevant to him. It is kosher to him. It's not kosher to him right now, but it's technically kosherable to him, and therefore, even in his current state, when he's a multi-billionaire, he still is allowed to use it as his eser because he is shaykh to it. Now, Beis Shammai disagrees with this lacha. Beis Shammai says you can't feed demai not to poor people and not to quartering soldiers, and therefore demai is not shaykh to you, and that's why it's possible you can't use it. Next, the Gemara mentions Ma'aser Sheni in Yerushalayim. Again, the Gemara says that this is depending on the machlokes between Rav Ami, Rav Asi, Rav Meir, and the Chachamim. Now, Ma'aser Sheni in Yerushalayim, the Mishnah had said that lechatchila you shouldn't use it, meaning even according to the opinion that we had said that it's kosher according to the Chachamim and the Machlokes whether or not it's kosher according to Rabbi Meir, but according to all opinions lechatchila you shouldn't use it. Why lechatchila you shouldn't use it? So the Gemara says the same Machlokes applies, either because it's going to become tamei or because it's going to become ruined. You're not allowed to be tamei or ruin Ma'aser Sheni. And again, the same Machlokes applies to Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim according to Rabbi Ami, according to Rav Asi and Rav Chia Bar Abba. Okay. Next, the Gemara moves on to the psul of chazazas. Chazazas is where it has blisters or raised marks on the skin of the esrog. So Gemara quotes Rav Chizda, very similar Gemara that we had earlier about Hadassim. The Gemara quotes Rav Chizda, who says that this was said by Rabbeinu Hagadol, the great Rebbe, who Rashi had said is Rav, and he says that it's only a psul. Again, the Mishnah said that chazazis, these blisters, are a psul if it covers the majority of the skin of the esrog. If it covers the minority, then it's kosher. So in the first version of Rav Chizda, he said that the psul, where it's pasul, if it covers the majority, that's only if it's in one spot. But if it's spread out on 2 or 3 places around the esrog, it's kosher. Rava asked, no, if 2 or 3 places it's worse, then it looks like spotted. So the Gemara therefore says, no, it's the opposite. Rav Chizda said that which it's kosher, if it's a minority of the skin, is only if it's concentrated in one spot, but if it's spread out in 2 or 3 places, it's possible because it looks spotted. And Rava adds a halacha. Rava says that the top part of the esrog, which is what's called a nose, the chotim, is from where the esrog begins to slope inward towards the pitum. That whole area is what's most readily visible, and therefore on there, even the tiniest chazazis is a psul, the tiniest blemish is a so as we shall see. Next, the Mishnah said if it's missing the pitum, it's possible. The Gemara quotes Rav Yitzchak ben Elazar and a Brisa who says that when we say the pitum is missing, we mean the stem of the pitum. The pitum is shaped kind of like a mushroom with a stem and a cap called the dad and the shoshanta. So Rav Yitzchak says it's got to be that the dad is missing, and that's because that's a piece of the esrog itself. It's not just a wooden thing stuck on. And if that's missing, that's where there is a psul. If only the cap of the mushroom of the pitum is missing, that would be kosher. Now, next the Gemara says if it's peeled. The Mishnah had said that if it is peeled, it is pasul. The Rava says that if you have an esrog which is peeled and turned red like a date, it's kosher. I said, what do you mean? Our Mishnah said that it's pasul. I said, not a kasha. One is where it's fully peeled, one is where it's partially peeled. That's the machlokes Rishonim, which is which. Rashi learns that if it's fully peeled, it's kosher because it's nice. It looks very nice. It's fully peeled. Most Rishonim, Rashi learns that if it's partially peeled, then it looks spotted. It's a psul of spotted. And most Rishonim learn the other way, that if it's fully peeled, that's where it's pasul. But if it's mostly there, then it is.
Drive the Daf is a project of the Grand Woodlands Shul and is presented by Rabbi Yitzchak Landa. Find us on YouTube or subscribe to daily emails by emailing drivethedaf@gmail.com.